Have you ever experienced those sleepless nights when anxiety about money keeps your brain running at full speed? It's 3 a.m., you're wide awake, and suddenly you're imagining every worst-case scenario. What happens if your vehicle needs major repairs? What if your computer stops working when you need it most? What if you suddenly find yourself without employment? What if there's an urgent medical situation with your family pet? If this sounds disturbingly familiar, then what I'm about to share could be genuinely life-changing. There exists a particular savings threshold that has the power to eliminate the majority of these stress-filled midnight thought spirals and completely transform how you navigate through your daily existence. Here's something most folks don't understand. Financial benchmarks aren't just random figures that wealthy individuals invented to create comparison anxiety for everyone else. There's genuine scientific research and actual mathematical principles explaining why specific monetary amounts trigger fundamental transformations in how we live day to day. And that first truly significant threshold? It's not 7 figures, it's not even 6 figures. The magic number is $10,000. Ever caught yourself wondering what it genuinely feels like to have various levels of savings accumulated? And even more critically, how reaching each benchmark fundamentally alters your thinking patterns and choices? Then you're going to want to stay with me through this entire discussion. If you find value in what I'm sharing today, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a like on this video. It really helps more people discover this information. But first, let's establish what existence looks like before you cross this threshold. Think about standing in the grocery aisle, mentally running calculations about whether you can justify buying the better quality cereal, or if you need to grab the store brand that honestly tastes pretty terrible. Or consider when your social circle suggests dining out somewhere, and you find yourself inventing elaborate reasons why you can't join them, because admitting that spending $25 on one meal would derail your weekly budget feels too embarrassing. This represents the daily reality for countless individuals trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck existence. Every monetary choice transforms into a mathematical problem. Every surprise expense triggers feelings of potential disaster. You're perpetually defending against financial threats rather than strategically planning for future growth. Here's where the psychology becomes absolutely fascinating. A very specific mental transformation occurs once you successfully accumulate that first $10,000. And contrary to what you might assume, it has absolutely nothing to do with suddenly affording luxury purchases. Actually, most individuals who achieve this milestone maintain remarkably similar spending patterns. The genuine transformation happens at a much deeper, more profound psychological level. Your entire relationship with risk undergoes a fundamental shift. With zero financial cushion, virtually every choice feels potentially catastrophic. Considering a career change, relocating to another region, or even booking a vacation creates overwhelming stress because you understand that one miscalculation could result in financial devastation. However, once you've got $10,000 sitting safely in your account, these identical decisions suddenly feel manageable. You're probably not going to impulsively resign and pursue some unconventional career path tomorrow, but you might finally develop enough confidence to pursue that advancement opportunity you've been considering for months. You might feel comfortable investing in professional development courses or certifications that could significantly boost your income potential. This financial buffer doesn't encourage recklessness, but it absolutely grants you permission to envision possibilities beyond mere survival until the next payday arrives. There's also remarkable neuroscience behind what happens in your brain when you observe a 5-digit balance for the first time. Research from neuroscientists demonstrates that financial stability actually decreases cortisol production, which is your body's main stress chemical. This means achieving $10,000 doesn't merely change your financial situation. It literally transforms how your physical body processes everyday challenges. Remember the last time you dealt with vehicle trouble? When you're surviving paycheck to paycheck, that warning light on your dashboard basically becomes a countdown to financial catastrophe. You immediately start panicking about repair costs, whether you'll need to charge it to plastic or if you'll have to request a loan from relatives. But when you've got $10,000 saved, that identical warning light becomes merely annoying. You're frustrated, certainly, but not experiencing panic. The shift from panic mode to mild irritation might appear insignificant, but it generates ripple effects throughout your entire existence. When financial worry isn't constantly consuming your thoughts, you make superior decisions across the board. Your sleep quality improves dramatically, your workplace performance increases substantially, you demonstrate more patience with loved ones. Financial anxiety impacts every dimension of human behavior. Eliminating that anxiety releases mental capacity that you can redirect toward genuinely improving your circumstances. But here's something rarely discussed about reaching $10,000. The primary benefit doesn't actually come from spending the money. It comes from simply knowing the money exists. Financial professionals call this the emergency fund effect, and it ranks among the most underappreciated principles in personal finance. An emergency fund isn't really about the emergencies themselves. It's about the mental peace that comes from knowing you can manage emergencies. Most individuals who build $10,000 in savings never actually deplete it on emergencies. Instead, they utilize it for opportunities. They fund their education, they launch businesses, they relocate to more promising locations, or they simply possess the mental bandwidth to concentrate on income growth because they're not perpetually worried about basic survival. There's also an undeniable confidence element that's challenging to measure but impossible to overlook. When you know money sits in your account, you present yourself entirely differently. Your negotiation skills improve dramatically. You're more prepared to decline unfavorable arrangements because desperation isn't driving your decisions. This confidence frequently results in superior employment opportunities, healthier relationships, and better overall life trajectories. Now, perhaps you're thinking that $10,000 feels like an insurmountable amount, particularly if you're currently struggling to save even $100 monthly. But here's the interesting psychological reality. The most difficult aspect isn't actually accumulating the money itself. The hardest part involves developing the identity of someone who saves money consistently. Most individuals approach saving like a crash diet. They dramatically slash expenses for several months, save intensively, then burn out completely, and revert to previous spending behaviors. But people who successfully reach $10,000 don't view saving as temporary deprivation. They view it as becoming a fundamentally different person. This identity transformation is absolutely crucial because it influences every financial choice you make going forward. When you perceive yourself as someone who saves money, you begin recognizing expense reduction opportunities you never noticed previously. You become more inventive about discovering additional income sources. You start thinking long-term rather than fixating solely on immediate satisfaction. The beautiful aspect of this process is progressive difficulty reduction. Saving your initial $1,000 is absolutely brutal. It demands substantial lifestyle modifications and continuous willpower, but accumulating your second $1,000 becomes noticeably easier because you've already established the habits and mindset. By the time you're working toward your fifth or sixth $1,000, the process feels nearly automatic. There's also mathematical reality making $10,000 particularly powerful. This amount can cover the overwhelming majority of unexpected expenses that financially derail people. Vehicle repairs, medical bills, unemployment periods, family emergencies. Most of these situations can be managed with under $10,000. This means once you achieve this milestone, you're essentially protected against most financial disasters that trap people in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle indefinitely. But perhaps the most significant transformation when you save your first $10,000 involves how you begin conceptualizing money itself. Rather than viewing money as something that simply vanishes from your paycheck monthly, you start recognizing it as a tool that expands your options exponentially. Before you have savings, money feels limited and finite. Every dollar spent represents a dollar permanently gone. But when you have $10,000 functioning as your financial foundation, you begin understanding that money can actually generate more money through smart deployment. This is when people start exploring concepts like investing, side ventures, and passive revenue streams, not because they suddenly became financial experts, but because they finally possess the mental space to consider more than just covering basic expenses. When you're not constantly worried about rent money, you can start contemplating retirement accounts. When you're not stressed about grocery costs, you can start researching market investments seriously. Here's something that might genuinely surprise you. The person with $10,000 saved is actually closer to financial independence than someone with zero savings, even if that second person earns double the income annually. Why? Because the saver has mastered the most critical wealth-building skill, which isn't earning money, it's retaining money. You probably know individuals making six-figure salaries who somehow remain perpetually broke. They drive premium vehicles, occupy upscale apartments, and frequent restaurants charging $20 for salad, yet they have absolutely no savings whatsoever. Meanwhile, you might know someone earning $40,000 annually who has managed to accumulate substantial savings through intentional spending. The difference isn't income level, it's mindset. And reaching $10,000 in savings provides a masterclass in developing proper financial thinking. You learn distinguishing wants from genuine needs. You become skilled at reducing expenses without feeling deprived. Most importantly, you develop patience for delayed gratification, which is probably the single most valuable financial skill anyone can master. Now let's discuss what $10,000 can actually accomplish in practical terms. First, it covers virtually any vehicle repair short of complete engine replacement. Most automotive emergencies cost between $500 and $3,000. With $10,000 in the bank, vehicle problems shift from financial catastrophes to minor inconveniences. Medical emergencies become manageable too. Even without excellent insurance coverage, most urgent care visits, emergency room trips, or minor procedures fall within this range comfortably. You won't cover major surgery with $10,000, but you can handle the vast majority of health issues that emerge unexpectedly. Job loss, which represents probably the most terrifying financial scenario for most people, becomes something you can actually survive. $10,000 provides roughly 3 to 6 months of breathing room for finding new employment, depending on your monthly expenses. That's sufficient time to be selective about your next opportunity rather than desperately accepting whatever offer arrives first out of pure necessity. But here's where things become really interesting. Having $10,000 doesn't just protect against disasters. It actually creates opportunities that wouldn't exist otherwise at all. Maybe you hear about a certification program that could increase your salary by $10,000 annually, but it requires $2,000 upfront investment. Without savings, this is completely impossible. With your financial foundation, it's an obvious investment decision. Or perhaps a friend mentions launching a business and seeking small investors. Without savings, you can only offer encouragement and moral support. With $10,000, you have the option to participate in something that could potentially transform your entire financial trajectory. I'm not suggesting you should invest your entire emergency fund in questionable cryptocurrency ventures, but having options feels dramatically different from having no options whatsoever. The psychological impact extends beyond just financial decisions as well. When you have money saved, your sleep improves significantly. And I mean this literally, not metaphorically. Research demonstrates that people with emergency funds report substantially better sleep quality than those without savings. Financial stress is one of the primary causes of insomnia, and eliminating that stress provides immediate health benefits. Your relationships improve as well dramatically. Money stress is identified as one of the leading causes of divorce and family conflict. When you're not constantly worried about bills, you have more emotional energy to invest in people you care about deeply. You're less irritable, less anxious, and more present in your interactions with others. There's also something worth mentioning about the confidence boost that accompanies having money in the bank. You approach job interviews differently when you know you don't desperately need the position. You're significantly more likely to negotiate salary and benefits because you're not operating from fear. This confidence often results in better job offers and higher compensation packages, creating a positive feedback loop that accelerates your financial progress even further. But let's address the elephant in the room directly. $10,000 might sound like an enormous amount if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck. The good news is, you don't need to save it all immediately. Actually, attempting to save too aggressively often backfires because it's not sustainable long-term. The most successful savers started with ridiculously small amounts, maybe $50 monthly, possibly even $25. The key is consistency over time, not the initial contribution size. Once you establish the habit of saving something every month, you can gradually increase the amount as your income grows or as you discover ways to reduce expenses. Here's a reality check that might motivate you. The average American spends over $3,000 annually on coffee, dining out, and convenience purchases alone. That's not even including major expenses like vehicle payments or entertainment subscriptions. If you could redirect just 1/3 of that spending towards savings, you'd have your $10,000 in under 3 years. I'm not suggesting you should never enjoy coffee or eat at restaurants, but I am highlighting that most people have more budget flexibility than they realize initially. The difference between someone who builds savings and someone who doesn't typically comes down to awareness and intentionality, not income level fundamentally. The compound effect of having $10,000 extends far beyond immediate financial security. It transforms how you think about risk, how you approach opportunities, and how you plan for the future systematically. Most importantly, it proves to yourself that you're capable of achieving substantial financial goals, which creates momentum for even larger accomplishments down the road. When you have your first $10,000 saved, you start thinking differently about your next $10,000, and then the one after that. Before you realize it, you're on a path toward genuine financial independence, not because you got lucky or inherited money, but because you developed the habits and mindset that make wealth building inevitable. The transformation that occurs when you save your first $10,000 isn't just about the money itself. It's about becoming the type of person who has money saved. And that identity shift creates ripple effects that extend into every corner of your life in ways you probably never anticipated initially. Let's discuss something called decision fatigue, which sounds like meaningless corporate jargon but is actually a genuine psychological phenomenon studied extensively. Every day you make thousands of tiny financial decisions. Should I purchase the generic pasta or the name brand? Can I afford to buy lunch today or should I pack a sandwich? Is it worth paying for premium gas or will regular suffice? Each of these micro-decisions consumes precious mental energy, and by day's end, you're exhausted from constantly calculating whether you can afford things. But here's what happens when you have $10,000 in the bank securely. Suddenly, 90% of these daily financial decisions become irrelevant. You're not choosing between generic and name-brand pasta because you're worried about your bank account balance. You're choosing based on what you actually prefer taste-wise. This might seem trivial initially, but imagine how much mental energy you'd liberate if you stopped making survival-based calculations 50 times daily. I know someone who shared that the first time they entered a grocery store after reaching $10,000 in savings, they almost became emotional. Not because they went crazy purchasing caviar and champagne extravagantly, but because they realized they could focus on what they actually wanted to eat rather than what they could barely afford to eat. That's a level of freedom most people don't even realize they're missing until they experience it firsthand. Now, let's be realistic about something that financial advisors don't always emphasize clearly. Having $10,000 saved doesn't make you wealthy by any means. It doesn't mean you can resign from your job and become a professional beach volleyball player. You're still going to think twice before purchasing a $1,000 gadget you don't really need, but what it does provide is breathing room. And breathing room is the absolute foundation of every sound financial decision. When you're not gasping for financial air constantly, you can actually think strategically about your money, rather than just reacting to whatever crisis emerges next. Maybe you notice your car insurance renewal approaching and you actually have time to compare rates rather than just accepting whatever they send you automatically. Maybe you realize your phone plan is ridiculously expensive and you can switch to something cheaper without worrying about switching fees. These optimizations might only save you $50 or $100 monthly individually, but when you're not stressed about money, you're more likely to notice these opportunities. And those small optimizations compound over time into serious savings that make your next financial goal even more achievable. Here's something interesting about human psychology that most people don't realize initially. When you have zero savings, every dollar feels precious because losing it means you're one step closer to financial disaster. But when you have $10,000 saved, individual dollars start feeling less precious proportionally, which actually makes you more willing to spend money on things that could increase your earning potential significantly. This seems counterintuitive initially, but it's incredibly important. The person with no savings might skip a $50 networking event because $50 feels like substantial money when you're living paycheck to paycheck, but the person with $10,000 saved might attend that same event and end up meeting someone who offers them a job paying $5,000 more annually. The safety net doesn't make you careless with money, but it does make you more willing to invest in genuine opportunities. I've witnessed this play out countless times personally. People who build their first substantial savings account often experience sudden acceleration in their career growth trajectory, not because having money directly leads to promotions automatically, but because financial security gives them the confidence to take chances that broke people simply can't afford to take practically. Let's talk about something nobody mentions in personal finance articles, but everyone experiences in real life constantly: the social dynamics of money and relationships. When you're constantly stressed about your financial situation, it affects how you interact with other people in subtle but significant ways. You might avoid social situations because you can't afford to participate fully. You might feel embarrassed about your financial struggles and become withdrawn socially. You might even develop resentment toward friends who seem more financially stable. When you're not constantly stressed about money, you start approaching social situations differently entirely. You participate more fully and authentically. You're more generous with others because generosity doesn't threaten your own security anymore. People notice this shift subconsciously, and it tends to strengthen relationships rather than strain them. The confidence that comes from financial stability is subtle but powerful, and it affects virtually every social interaction you have daily. So there you have it comprehensively. $10,000 isn't just a number in your bank account. It's a complete psychological transformation that touches every aspect of your life fundamentally. From sleeping better at night to approaching job interviews with genuine confidence instead of desperation, this milestone creates a domino effect that most people never see coming initially. If you're currently staring at a bank balance that looks more like a phone number from the 1950s, don't panic or feel discouraged. Start small, stay consistent, And remember that the person you become while saving your first $10,000 is infinitely more valuable than the money itself ultimately.